Hello learners, welcome to PECO Virtual School. Today we are going to study computer stock ICT, and the person handling the lesson is Mr. Kichui Shedrack Enoch. Last time we looked at the computer hardware, but the topic is still on. We looked at part 1, part 2, and now let's proceed with the part 3. Hope you managed to understand the other 2 parts very well. And if you are doing our questions that are accompanied with our videos, I believe you will be able to understand very well. Now, in this computer hardware part 3, we are going to look at these items here. 1, we are going to look at the registers. We need to understand what are computer registers. Then we shall also look at the buses. Of course, we are going to explain, and you will understand what are the computer buses. Then we are going to look at the backing storages. We need to know what are the backing storages. Within backing storages, we are going to look at the hard disk, the part of the backing storage, optical disks, floppy disks, flash disks, and also magnetic tapes. Now, before you proceed, you need to know some of the important computer books that you may not ignore during your learning. Around here, we have this book. If you are in O level, we have direct to points. All these books are direct to points, but this one is direct to points, information and communication technology, computer studies for O level. So get this book. It has notes, questions and answers, or rather question at each and every topic, and also some unable questions and answers. This is direct to points in computer applications known as the bulldozer. You can learn computer practical yourself because here they are arranged step by step. So when you get this book has taught many people. They have taught young teachers, they have taught college students, secondary students. It is well known. And when you go to any bookshop around Kampala or any other part of the country, ask for the bulldozer, they will get you. But some of you admire to become computer programmer. This book is very good, and it has a DVD of video tutorials. You can start teaching yourself computer programming without anyone aiding you, because the book is well written and there is a DVD of video tutorial which is sold together with the book. You learn using C and HTML. If you are in O level, it is part of the syllabus, but if not, you may be in your vacation. Try to get this book, whether vacation O level or A level. Try to start learning programming. You will not regret. Then here we have direct to points, the examiner's words. This one is basically for A level subsidiary ICT. So there we are. Now let us start with the registers. computer has several kind or types of memories. You hear of random access memory, read-only memory, but you hear of cache memories. But the other form of memory, we have registers. And registers, these basically are types of memories that are available within the CPU. Now, what are the roles of these registers? Registers are high speed storage areas that temporarily hold data and instructions that will be used immediately by the CPU. Meaning that data to be stored in registers should be that kind of data that is to be used by the CPU, but immediately. So the data that is not being used by the CPU immediately cannot reside in registers. Instead, it will be in random access memory or RAM. So registers are not a part of memory. They are not part of memory. Rather, they are special additional storage locations that offer the advantage of speed. The speed is their advantage. That's why CPU keeps data that needs to use it frequently there. The computer loads the program instructions and data from the main memory into the registers just prior to processing, which helps the computer to process faster. So that's the reason why these registers are there. We say registers because it is not just one, there are several. There are several of them within the CPU. Registers work under the direction of the control unit to accept, hold, and transfer instructions or data, and perform arithmetic or logical comparisons at very high speed. Here, there is an example of these memories. We have, look at this order here. Down here, we have the hard disk. Usual information is loaded within, or it is stored within the hard disk. Now, if information is read from the hard disk, maybe it has been stored here on the hard disk permanently. Hard disk operates at a very low speed. That's why you see this arrow here shows that as we move up, the next level is the most speedy storage device. Now, hard disk is slow. That's why information is stored here will be loaded into RAM. RAM operates at a high speed compared to hard disk. Now, from there, RAM also can work with the CPU, but it is not as fast compared to cache memory. Cache memory is very fast. So, the information will also be taken from RAM to cache. Now, depending on the type of data item, registers will also be used. So data can be taken from cache to registers to optimize the performance of the CPU. So when you look at this, let's say registers are used to quickly accept, store, and transfer data and instructions as directed by the CPU. So when you look at description of registers, you look at that quickness of operation, quickly to accept data, quickly to store, to transfer data and instructions as directed by the CPU, so CU or control unit. First temporary memory location for CPU. This is still describe the register that they are temporary. They don't store information there permanently. So another description, while they are quick, but the storage is temporary. By temporary means that they cannot keep information there for long, but it can take a short period of time. Then it holds also a storage address. It holds a storage address. When we talk of a storage address, we mean it holds an address of data item stored in memory. It holds an address of the data item stored in memory. When memory or RAM is divided into small units, and each unit can be referred by its address. They are numbered. Those small storage locations are numbered, and those numbers can be referred to as the addresses. And so the data item stored somewhere, its address of that data item can also be stored for quick or for easy access. They exist in microprocessor. And also the optimization of processing time. When we talk of optimization, is that ability of ensuring that the CPU time or resources are not wasted at any particular moment, so that the performance can be highly achieved. Registers usually are 14 registers in CPU. They are usually 14. Now, let us have that basic knowledge of registers, and we'll keep on learning, and we shall be able to understand it with the time. But keep on repeating the tutorial to have a better grasp of registers. Now, within here, we still show another form of register. Not another form, but it tells you that these registers are several within the CPU. This one is the CPU, and within you will find the registers with the different name according to their role. Like here you see accumulator, CIR or current instruction register, memory address register, program counter, memory MDR. So all these ones are registers. They are registers. But as we are going to look at them ahead, they are trying to show you. Now, let's look at common types of registers. Not that we are having only these, but we are looking at the most common. One, we have an accumulator, like you have seen in the previous diagram. Accumulator, which collects the result of computation. It collects the result of computation. That means when the computer works, the result of that computation is kept in a register known as accumulator. Then we have address register. Address register. This one keeps track of where a given instruction or piece of data is stored in memory, which keeps track of where a given instruction or piece of data is stored in memory. Each storage location in the memory is identified by an address, just as each house on a street has an address. An example or an analogy I can use, whereby if you are in class where they call it stream A, senior 2A, senior 3A, or senior 2B, the class S2A, it's the address of any particular student who can be found there. So you can be directed that go to senior 2A and get Juma Mungi. That means that you are addressing the room where a particular student can be found. That room can be addressed. So even in these registers here, the data items can be accessed using the addresses, which are kept in this area called an address register. Then we have a storage register. A storage register. What is it for? This one temporarily holds data taken from or about to be sent to memory. Temporarily holds data taken from or about to be sent to memory. Now, when the result of computation is performed, is obtained, it is kept in this memory called accumulator. However, that data also, it is supposed to be sent to the memory. Now, since it's supposed to be sent to memory, here say this one temporarily hold data taken from or about to be sent to memory. So the data that is to be taken to memory or to be sent to memory, it is held here because it is about to be sent to memory. Okay? Data taken from or about to be sent to memory is held here. Then we have general purpose register, which is used for several functions. This one is used for several functions which are not defined here. Then we have program counter register. Program counter register, which holds the address of the next instruction to be fetched from the main memory. If you remember in our tutorial, series of our tutorial in this very topic, we are talking of fetching of data from main memory. If you remember machine cycle, you will go back to the previous part of the hardware part 2, and follow the machine cycle, and you will understand that data can be fetched. Now, this program counter register holds the address of the next instruction to be fetched from the main memory. Then we have current instruction register. Current instruction register. This one holds the instruction to be obeyed currently. By being obeyed, we mean to be processed. To be processed. That's why I say current instruction register. It is a register that holds the data item or instructions that are being processed currently. So these are some of the few registers we are talking about. We have instruction decoder. Instruction decoder. This one interprets or decodes the instructions currently held in the instruction register. So it is basically for interpreting instructions to create the meaning of particular instructions which are meant to tell the machine or the computer only what to do. So try to understand these registers, keep on reading, listening to the description, play over and over until you have the grasp of these kind of devices. Now, buses. Buses. Look at this diagram here. We are talking about buses. When we talk about buses, we mean channels. Channels. But these channels are electronic. The channels we are talking about are electronic. Within the computer, there are several components, and these components communicate each other. They follow the channels to link one component within the computer to another. So buses are electronic paths or channels that make the element of computer systems hardware to communicate. Elements. What are the elements? One of the elements can be the ALU or arithmetic and logical unit. The other can be memory, output, input. So how will they communicate? You need these channels. This blue color is a channel, the red color is a channel, the yellow color is a channel. But you need to understand that we have three major types of buses. We have control bus, data bus, and address bus. We are going to look at them in this very topic as we move ahead. So, these channels or highway convey data or instruction, information, control command, and power among communicating elements. So they are very essential because in order for one component to communicate with the other, any item of data that is being relayed or sent from one element to another, you need the channels to link different components within the computer. So here it shows, this diagram here shows you that you have control bus, address bus, and data bus. Control bus, address bus, and data bus. Control bus for sending control commands, because there are commands given to computer from the CPU or control unit. So those control instructions, they need to follow that kind of a bus to send those messages. Then the address bus. With the address bus, the locations within the main memory are addressed. So if the address is to be used to access any data item, then the address bus will be used to transmit that the address that contain the information that is required by the CPU. In the same way, we have data bus. Data bus provides the channel where the data item can move for any particular purpose, maybe for processing or for output or for storage. So we need the data bus for that very purpose. So we say buses are electronic paths or channels that make the element of computer system hardware to communicate. These channels or highways convey data, instruction from or information, control command, and power among communicating elements. I think this one is just trying to repeat what you have already talked about. Here, you will find that components are shown apart. That you have the CPU, you have the memory, you have video controller, disk controller, control unit, ALU. They are shown that they can be far apart. Remember that within the computer there are several components, but at times we simply show the basic one, but there are several components, hundreds of them, but they need to communicate. So these buses are just here for that very purpose. That purpose only, to provide the channel which can be used to transmit data items from one device to another. Here, behind, this is a sketch, but here is a real picture. When you open your CPU, when you open your that box cabinet, you will see the motherboard here, and it will show you. May not identify which kind of device here because it's a picture, but if you are to study computer engineering, computer maintenance and repair, you will interact with these components directly. However, you should know that here there are components, there are several components, and they need to communicate. They need to link from one device to another. Now, let us look at backing storage. Backing storage. What do we mean by backing? Backup. Backing storages provide the permanent and massive storage of data for future reference. These devices are called backing storage because they are helping the main memory, which is always limited. It can't store a lot of information, and its storage is temporary. Therefore, backing storage provides permanent and massive. When we talk of massive, we mean it can store a lot of data compared to the main memory, which can store very little. So, with the backing storage, can help the memory to store data permanently because main memory or RAM is slow. Is limited, and it is temporary. Main memory is temporary, but this one is permanent, and massive storage can be provided. So backing storage can alternatively be called auxiliary memory. So at times these backing storages are known as auxiliary memory. They are also known as secondary memory. They are also known as external memory. Auxiliary because these are simply giving help to main memory, which is slow. Secondary also, it means the same. External because they are not the internal, or they are not storages that are within the CPU. They are external. Now, what are the characteristics of backing storage? What are the characteristics of backing storages? One, they provide large space for storing programs and data files. They are usually able to store a lot of information. They store data permanently for future reference. You can keep data there for years, but anytime you can come and get your information back. But also, backing store cannot be directly accessed by the CPU. CPU or central processing unit or the processor cannot read information directly to the backing storage. But that information is supposed to be transferred, perhaps to main memory if it is to be ready. Therefore, its contents must be read into main memory before they can be processed. Then, let's look at the difference between primary memory and the secondary memory. Be aware that you may be asked to differentiate between primary memory and the secondary memory. Now, look. Here we have these differences. With the primary memory, it can store data or instructions temporarily. That is, its content disappear when the power is turned off. That is the primary memory. That it is store data and instruction temporarily. But for the secondary memory, data and instruction are stored permanently. So while primary memory stores temporarily, secondary memory can store permanently. With the temporary mean for a short time, permanently for a very long time. Then, primary memory is limited. By limited, we mean the information stored in primary memory can only be little, not much. But as of secondary storage, it can store a large amount of data, a lot of information. Then, the primary memory, its content can directly be accessed by the CPU, directly. But the secondary memory cannot. You have to get that information to random access memory if it is to be accessed by the CPU. Otherwise, it cannot. Then, primary memory can operate at a very high speed. Very high speed. Speed at which data is accessed from the primary memory is high. But as of secondary memory, the speed at which data is accessed from the secondary memory is low. That means when you read information stored on hard disk, for instance, or flash disk, or floppy disk, or even compact disk, it will be slow. But if that information is to be read from the primary memory, it will be ready at a very high speed. Now, let us look at common types of backing storage. Common type of backing storage. This one includes, we have floppy disks, hard disks, optic disks, magnetic tapes, flash disks. Now, the following table can summarize the characteristics of the various kinds of storage in the storage hierarchy. Look at the table. Here we have storage, you have registers, RAM, floppy disk, hard disk. They simply show you that registers are the fastest. They are very fast. But capacity is low. capacity, storage capacity is very low, the lowest. The cost, very high. They are very expensive. So when it comes to cost, relative cost, very high. Volatility, they are volatile. By volatile, we mean information there can disappear when you switch off the power. That is the volatility we are talking about, that they are volatile. RAM speed is very fast, but the capacity is low. So you will realize that while registers speed is the fastest, RAM is just very fast. While capacity is the lowest, here is moderate. RAM is moderate. Relative cost is high, but registers relative cost is the highest. But they are also volatile. Random access memory, they are volatile. If you put information there, you can't find it when you put back the power. Then floppy disk. Speed low. They are very low. Capacity low. Relative cost low. Floppy disk, they are very cheap. Although floppy disk now, they are hardly in use, but they used to be very cheap. And they are non-volatile. When we talk of volatility, they are non-volatile, meaning that they can store information permanently. Hard disk, with the speed moderate, capacity very high, very high. Relative cost low, volatility non-volatile. So there we are trying to learn the difference between these storage devices. Now let us look at the floppy diskettes. A floppy disk or diskette is a thin circular flexible plastic disk with a magnetic coating enclosed in a square-shaped plastic shell. That plastic shell houses the other thin disk. It is within that plastic shell. A floppy disk is a device that can read from and write. That is a floppy disk drive. While this is a floppy disk, this can be floppy disk drive. It's a device that can read from and write to a floppy disk. So let's look at the characteristics of floppy diskettes. Their characteristics. One, they are limited in their storage capacity, that they can store very low. That is 1.44 MB only. Floppy diskettes are very delicate and need to be handled with extra care. When we say they are very delicate, we mean they can easily get spoiled. If they are exposed to sunshine, some abnormal temperature a little bit, they can get spoiled with the data. Also, they are very slow, both in reading and writing. If you are to talk of reading the content is stored within the the floppy diskette, it is very slow. And even when you are trying to write, it is very slow. Then they are flexible, that is, can be removed and used elsewhere. They are also very cheap, very cheap. Now let us look at the hard disk. Now hard disk consists of one or more rigid, rapidly rotating disks, platters coated with magnetic material and with magnetic heads arranged to write data to the surface and read from them. Okay, so a hard disk drive is a device for storing and retrieving digital information, primarily computer data. A hard disk will be having several metal platters, as we are going to look at. Now, let us look at hard disk here. This is the hard disk with several parts. We have a head, actuator arm, actuator axis, power connector, jumper block, actuator, platter. This thing where you can read and write, it's called the platter. Okay. Now, let us look at also a more detailed parts of the hard disk. This one shows several parts. But let us look at one by one the parts of the hard disk. One, we have platter, metal platter. This is the area where information is written to the hard disk. It spins constantly as it continues to add important data to the computer hard disk. If you are not understand which platter is, please, you can go back, you can rewind, and you look at the other area labeled platter, and you know what is its function. Then spidol. This device helps to hold the platter in place and makes it easier for the platter to spin at the necessary speed. So that spidol is one which holds that CD family. Then it is a form of magnetic that helps in the recording, the head. This is the form of a magnetic that helps in the recording of information to the hard disk drive. That head, you look at it in the diagram, it is the one that actually write on the hard disk. Actuator arm. This allows the head to move back and forth across the disk drive as it records information. This one will help that when the writing takes place, it can move track to track, because that hard disk has several tracks. Each platter has several tracks, so you must be able to move from one track to another, and that is the work of actuator arm. Actuator axis. This allows the actuator arm to move back and forth easily. It is the base for the actuator arm. Base of the actuator arm. So the actuator arm will move, but it needs to be held somewhere as it moves. Then actuator continuously reads and records information. It reads and records information. Jumper block. This allows a cable to connect to the power. Power supposed to be supplied to the machine, so this allows a cable to be connected. Simply, this allows a cable to connect to the power supply of the computer and all the motherboard device in the computer system. Integrated drive electronics connector. This allows a cable to run from the hard disk drive to the motherboard of the computer. Power connector. This also assists in providing power from the power supply. Now let us look at the advantages of a hard disk. What are the advantages? Number one, a hard disk provides a very large storage capacity compared to other forms of storage devices. This is a really thing that when you are using a hard disk, you can benefit with the large amount of storage capacity. Also, data or instructions can be read or written at a very high speed. Getting a huge chunk of data and send it to the hard disk from any other storage device can be copied to the hard disk at a very high speed. But also, reading the information stored on the hard disk to computer memory, it can be displayed at a very high speed. When I say to the computer memory, information before it comes from your screen, it must, when it is stored on hard disk, it must be loaded to the memory before it is sent to your monitor screen. Also, hard disk is more reliable than a floppy disk. Floppy disk tends to fail, and even flash disk. Actually, now we can compare it with a flash disk because floppy disks are no longer in use. It is very rare to find anyone using a floppy disk today. So, compared to flash disk or even other form of storages like say optical disk, CDs, you'll find a hard disk being much better in terms of security of data. Also, hard disk is more protected against dust and dirt. Other storage media like a CD, a mini compact disc, which you are going to look at, they are not well protected. After a short while, you find it can no longer work, even a flash disk. But a hard disk is very well protected. And a hard disk is cheaper on a cost per megabyte compared to other storage media. What do we mean here? Since a hard disk usually provides a lot of storage capacity, when you compare to the cost divided by the number of megabytes it can store, you find the hard disk is cheaper. It's like buying land in acres compared to buying land in divided plots. When you buy in acres, you find that the land becomes cheaper. But when you buy segmented land in form of plots, it becomes a little bit more expensive. Equally, the hard disk, you'll find that when you purchase a hard disk compared to the flash disk, the hard disk will be relatively cheaper because a flash disk will look cheaper, but it will store little. Then hard disk can be replaced and upgraded as necessary. That means that you can replace a hard disk, but you cannot upgrade. Then it can store and retrieve data much faster than a floppy disk or CD-ROM. I think this is the same as described somewhere up here, that hard disk can be read or written at a very high speed. The same point. Then it also has some disadvantages. One, if a hard disk eventually fails, stops the computer from working. A hard disk is a machine can hardly work without a hard disk, because that's why even the operating system is stored, data files. So if the hard disk fails, usually the computer will not be in operation. But if you have to store your information in other devices, you will find that you can't face such issues. Then regular head crashes can damage the surface of the disk, leading to loss of data in that sector. Regular head crashes, because this head, the one which writes, when you look at the other diagram, if you go back and look at the diagram where it writes on the disk surface, that regular rubbing sometimes can damage that surface, leading into loss of data. The disk is fixed inside the computer and cannot easily be transferred to another computer. That disk is fixed there. You can't easily say you want to read data from this machine, then you remove, you go like the way you do with a flash. Hard disk cannot provide that opportunity. Now, next, let us look at optical disks. This is another form of storage. The other name, they call them compact disk. Now, here is how the optical disk look like. It looks like this diagram here. Here is a optical disk, normal CDs you have ever seen. But how do you use it? If you want to read, you insert it in a drive called the disk drive. So when you insert it in this deck, you can close. When you close, you can easily read information. You can also write on it, the process referred to as burning, because they are optically written and read. So optical, it's something to do with the light, principles of light. Now, an optical disc is a removable. It is a removable. You can see here, you can insert it, but you can also remove, like the way it is held using a hand by its edge. You can use it and put it in the drive and use, but you can also open that door and remove it. So it is removable. So an optical disc is a removable disc on which data is written and read through the use of laser beams. So to read content on this disk, the computer use principles of light, or they call it laser beams. These are strong lights that are illuminated on the surface of that disk. So writing, that's why the writing, they call it to burn. Then the most familiar form of optical disc are the one that are used in music industry. They store music, they can store videos, such kind of things. They are commonly used for that purpose. But even in storing software programs for distribution. Then let's look at the types of optical discs. Some of the most popular discs include CD-ROM, or compact disc read-only memory. They call them read-only memory because usually they can only be read. The contents there can only be read. Or you write once, but you can't write again. CD plus or compact disc plus, CDR, compact disc recordable. Write once, read many, or WAM. At times in examination, you may be told to write in full, CD-ROM in full, CD plus in full, CDR. Then erasable optical disc, which can be in form of CD, RW, DVD, RW, meaning that these one are writable. You can both read and write. DVD-R or digital versatile disc, recordable. So if you are to explain around that, CD-ROM, which stands for compact disc read-only memory, is an optical disc format that is used to hold pre-recorded text, graphics, and sound. Can be able to record that. But the read-only means that the disk can be written on by the user cannot be written on by the user except accessing the data imprinted by the disk's manufacturer, meaning that the CD-ROM comes when it is written, but we shall look at another type. But CD-ROM comes when it is written, so you can't write. You'll see the difference. But you have what they call CD plus or enhanced CD. Is a digital disc that is a hybrid of audio only, compact disc, and multimedia. We shall look at that. But this one, it was some bit of enhanced, which can do some video recording. But the other CD-ROM could not store some videos. Then CDR. CDR stands for compact disc recordable. Now when we say recordable, it means that you can store information. You, the user, you can store. Now, the difference between CDR and CD-ROM is that this one you can write, but CD-ROM you can't write. However, in most cases, when you write, it remains CD-ROM. Like a CD-ROM, CDR disk cannot be erased. You can't erase the content. Although there are methods of formatting your disk so that you can put the content and erase and again store information again. We also have WAM, which stands for write once, read many. A WAM disk can be written or recorded onto just once, and they cannot be erased. But it can be read many times. It can be read many times. Now, this kind of WAM can be used. It is useful for storing data for backup and archival purposes because it can store greater volume of data than other types of CD-ROMs and magnetic tapes. So they can store a lot of information. So you can use them to store information which you think you can use it much later. That's why they say archive some historical information. WAM disk requires special WAM drives to write or read their contents. So sometimes a drive that reads CDR may not read a WAM disk. That's what they mean. Now let's look at DVD and DVD-ROM disks. A DVD-ROM or digital versatile disk should know also the terms in full because usually they talk of DVD, but here we mean digital versatile disk. Digital versatile disk is an extremely high capacity compact disk capable of storing massive amount of data ranging from 4.7, these are the most common, up to 17 GB or beyond, and they are called DVD or DVD-ROM disks. It represents a new generation of high-density CD-ROM disks with either write once or rewritable capabilities. Some you can only write once, but others you can write, erase, and rewrite. So it depends. They have a range of characteristics. They differ in many ways. Now, discs are delicate. Optical discs are very delicate. How do we care? One, always store the CDs in a jewel box when not in use. And always hold the compact disc by its edges, like we saw the other person handling at the edges. Never touch the underside of the CD. Don't touch it on its surface. If you touch on the surface, you will darken and it may fail to read or even write. Never stack CDs on top of each other. Some people get a tin and they pile them in large quantity to find that there are 100 CDs are stuck together. That way, a friction can occur and they get spoiled. Never expose the CDs to excessive heat or sunlight. If you do that one, just know you are weakening them. Now, let us look at magnetic tapes. Magnetic tapes. We have a photograph here of magnetic tape. However, they are not as common as they used to be. You can look at this magnetic tape, which for many years it was used to store music. Music was stored here, played. But nowadays, you just store in your memory card. But this was the actual storage. It could be inserted into either a cassette player, but also other gadgets. Magnetic tapes have been used for many years to store information, not only music, but also some other form of data were stored there. So a magnetic tape is a secondary storage device consisting of thin tape. That is a tape. This one known as a tape, but it is coated with the magnetic tape. So a magnetic tape is a secondary storage device consisting of thin, it is very thin tape with the one side coated with the ferromagnetic material. That ferromagnetic material is one that enables it to hold data. So it is a sequential storage medium used for data collection, backup, and archiving. When we talk of being sequential, this tape stores data item sequentially. Sequentially. That tape, you can't store something maybe at this point before you had stored something behind here. That is including reading. That's why, if you remember very well, because some music is still stored here, but there is a way they do rewinding and forwarding when you want to play music at a particular point on this tape. Why? Because they are sequential. Not like a DVD, you can locate music anywhere and open. You can locate any track and play straight from there and then, because it is randomly accessed. But this one, it is sequential. So if there is you want to play some music somewhere ahead, you do what they call forwarding. If it is behind, you do what they call rewind, because it is sequential. A medium used for data collection, backup, and archiving. When we talk of backup, it's that information that we just create copies so that we can retrieve much later. Archiving, it is also another form of keeping information which we believe that it is to be accessed not regularly, but we are just archiving it for historical purposes or for any other future retrieval. These are kind of the deck that can be used to be inserted. There are drives for inserting these magnetic tapes. And disadvantages of magnetic tapes. Usually we have disadvantages here. Each time we search for data, the data has to be searched from the beginning of the tape because they are sequential. So you can't easily locate data directly. No. You have to search by forwarding or rewinding to get the other item of data that you need. And this one make it very difficult to access information there. It is not possible to insert or delete the data in the middle of the tape. It is hard. It is very hard. Okay, because of its sequential manner. Care and handling of the magnetic tape. Use and store magnetic tape reels and cassettes in a clean environment. Also avoid contamination of the tapes by dirty, dusty fingerprints, food, cigarette smoke, and ash and airborne pollutants. Okay, I think you should know that tape, if you roll it out and you expose it to all this kind of harshness, you will not find it working. Take care not to drop tapes or cartridges. Ensure that you don't keep on, you hold them carefully so that they don't keep on falling. Because when they keep on falling, the other tape will usually get exposed, it comes out. Keep tapes out of strong sunlight and avoid contact with the water. Flash disks. Flash disks. Flash disk is a USB flash drive in a data storage device that include flash memory with an integrated universal serial bus interface. Okay, flash disks are common. They are just small kind of devices that we all use. A flash disk consists of a small printed circuit board carrying the circuit elements and a USB connector, insulated electrically and protected inside a plastic, metal, or rubberized case, which can be carried in a pocket or on a key chain. It is easy to carry because you can hang, and usually it is surrounded by some rubber or metal or some plastic thing to protect it, but inside it is a circuit. It is a circuit which is simply surrounded by such kind of protection. That's how the flash disk is. Units of measurements for capacity. The information we store in our machine can be measured. You hear of a byte, kilobyte, megabyte, terabyte. It is measured. So, a computer system's data or information storage capacity is represented by bits, bytes, kilobytes, megabytes, and gigabytes. Okay, but not only that, even in terabytes. There are other larger units, yottabyte, zettabyte, but let us look at these most basic ones. One, we have bits. Now, in a binary system, each 0 or 1 is called a bit. So a 0 or a 1 is called a bit. You remember, a computer stores data in forms of zeros and one, known as bits. So this is the format that a computer can recognize. So any information, whether in form of videos, text, graphics, when it is being stored in the computer, is recognized in form of bits. But when it is read out, interpretations take place so that for you can see a picture, you can see a video, you can see text, but within the machine it understands the form of 0 and 1. 0 meaning an off circuit and 1 an on circuit. So they are called binary system, which each one is called a bit. A bit stands for binary digits, which is short for binary digit. A bit is a smallest unit of data storage. A bit, if you are to describe it, is a smallest unit of data storage. Now, let us look at a byte. A byte is a group of 8 bits. That means when you hold 8 bits, they form a byte. And a byte represents one character. One character, digit, or other values. So, I can tell you a character like Y or I is equivalent to 80 bits. Any character, it can be a letter, a number, or any other special character like a comma or a full stop, a period, a comma, exclamation mark, those characters. So that's why I said to represent letters, numbers, or special characters such as hash or star, bits are combined into groups, and groups of 80 bits. That is star you see, its space occupied within the computer storage or memory are the same as having 80 bits together. Now, let's look at a kilobyte. A kilobyte, or K in short, or KB, but usually KB, is about 1,000 bytes. 1,000 bytes. Why about? There are some actual measurement, which it is actually exactly 1024 bytes. This is the actual one to be used. This one is just rounded, but the really is 1024 bytes. So be keen. But the figure is usually rounded. But you don't round. Just know that when we make conversions, try to use these units. 1024. Rounding may not do you good. Use this. So a megabyte. A megabyte. So we have seen that when you have 124 bytes, they give what we know as a kilobyte. A kilobyte. So if you have to define a kilobyte, say a kilobyte is the same as 1,024 bytes. Okay, a kilobyte is the same as 1,024 bytes. Megabytes. A megabyte or MB. Well, MB, I think we have so much used when we purchase data. The data we use for internet, to say MBs. Some people say my MBs are done. My MBs are done. It is a common thing when you are purchasing data bundles on the net. So it's about 1 million bytes. 1 million bytes, which is equivalent as 1,048,576 bytes. This is the actual thing. Or 1,024 kilobytes. So when you have 1,024 kilobytes, they give you a megabyte. A megabyte. When you have this 1,024 kilobytes, they give you a megabyte. But in bytes, it is 1,048,576. That's when you can have bytes. That's when you can have a megabyte. When you collect all these bytes, they can give you a megabyte. Get that point. Then a gigabyte. Hey, this is big. A gigabyte. So a gigabyte, or gigabyte, is about 1 billion. The other one was a million, but about 1 billion. Or the actual in bytes, say 1,073,941,824 bytes. 1 billion and 73 million, 1,073,941,824 bytes. Or in short, you can say it's the same as 1,024 megabytes. 1,024 megabytes can give you a gigabyte, but in form of bytes, they are in billion. Billion. A billion is not an issue. The great thing. Now let's look at terabyte. A terabyte, or TB, represents about 1 trillion. So when you come from billion, you come to a trillion. So 1 trillion bytes, or if they are in bytes, here is 1 trillion gigabyte, not bytes. 1 trillion gigabytes. No, bytes, yes. A terabyte is about 1 trillion bytes, or in brackets like 1 trillion 9 billion and 511, then 1 trillion and 9 billion, 1 trillion and 9 billion 511 million and 627,776 bytes. That is not an easy thing when you deal with the numbers. So that's what it means. You should know how to read these numbers. Now, from here, in the following session, we shall learn how to perform some little calculations where you can convert gigabytes to terabytes, terabytes to bytes. You are given maybe kilobytes to convert to megabytes, and so on. So get prepared, but keep on reading. In order to understand the computer very well, please do the reading, watch these video tutorials, do exercises. If you land on this video tutorial and you have not registered with us, register so that you can get questions, do the questions, and mark. So always call us using the numbers you will always see on the screen as this tutorial is running. Thank you very much. This is the author of Direct Points books, Mr. Kichui.